Hey everyone, it's Mr. Cole again. We're doing a little bit of grammar review, and we are talking about finding subjects and verbs. Okay, the reason that we still go over this and why it's important is that it's going to help us with agreement later on when we look at subject-verb agreement. If you look at your writing handout on the fatal writing flaws, one of the fatal writing flaws is having subjects and verbs that don't agree, and they cause confusion for the reader. All right, we're actually going to start with rule number 3. All right, and there's a reason for that. The book that we are using, okay, again, is the big blue book of grammar and punctuation. Put a free plug in there for Jane Strauss. This is the 9th edition. It's one of my favorite books to use when we're dealing with grammar because it breaks it down and makes it simple. It doesn't go super into detail to all of the stuff that you don't need to know, but it presents grammar in a style that's easy to understand. So I would recommend, if you don't have a grammar book or need something to follow along with, this would be a great one to use. Rule 3 is the basic rule. I don't know why they made it rule number 3 instead of rule number 1, since it's the basic rule, but they did. And basically what we're going to do is to find the subject and the verb, always find the verb first. Okay, that's an important thing. If you find the noun first or the subject first, sometimes you'll have the right one, sometimes you won't. But if you find the verb first, it'll help you out. Then you're going to ask who or what performed the verb. All right, once you've found it. So if we look at the first example, the jet engine passed inspection. All right, in this one, when we look for a verb, our verb is passed. All right, so we're going to mark that by using 2 lines. All right, and our next step, if we look back to rule number 3, is ask who or what performed it. So who or what passed inspection? The engine did. Okay, if you said jet to go along with it, that's okay. All right, you're not going to go to grammar jail or anything like that. That's actually part of the complete subject, something we'll talk about later on when we're looking at complete verbs and complete subjects. But the basic idea of the sentence is that the engine passed inspection. One of the things I do in class with this is I ask people, I say, well, if you read the sentence that the jet engine passed inspection, would you get on the plane? And a lot of times about half the class says, yeah, I get on it. But the whole jet didn't pass inspection here, just the engine. All right, it may not have any windows, it might be missing a wing, it may not have any wheels on it. It may be made out of paper, I wouldn't get on it. All right, so let's look at our second example here. We're going to follow the same rule. From the ceiling hung the chandelier. All right, in this case, we look for our verb, right, which is the verb hung. All right, now our next step again, ask who or what performed the verb. So who or what hung, and the chandelier is what hung. All right, the sentence starts out with a prepositional phrase from the ceiling there, just letting you know where it was. All right, so that's rule 3. And now we're going to backtrack a little bit. We're going to go back to rule number 1 and go forward. All right, so just look at your papers that you got in class. All right, so if you look to your sheet that I passed out in class, or if you're just watching this online, you can find it provided in information. There's a link to where you can see examples of these worksheets. The rule number 1, if a verb or an action word follows the word to, okay, it is called an infinitive phrase, and it is not the main verb. The main verb will be found before or after the infinitive phrase. All right, in this case, this is a common mistake made by a lot of people. It's a basic rule, but I still find seniors in high school making this simple mistake. And if we look at the examples, we'll see why. All right, in the first example, it says, I like to walk. All right, we have the infinitive phrase right here, to walk. All right, so if we look for before or after it, we're going to see the word like. Okay, like is our verb in this case. All right, it's to walk is describing what someone likes to do. All right, so it's providing some description there. In this case, we're going to ask, think back to rule number 3. Right, that we covered. So I said it's a basic rule. We found the verb, and we have to ask who or what likes to walk. I do. All right, so that is going to be our subject. All right, and that's important. Remember, anytime you're looking for a subject, we're looking for who or what performed the verb. So if we find the verb first, we can work backwards to figure out the subject. Or if we look at the second one, second example, it says the efforts to get her elected succeeded. All right. In this case, we have our infinitive phrase right here in the middle of the sentence, to get her elected. All right, that is our infinitive phrase. All right, and that's talking about the efforts. It's telling you which efforts or what the efforts were for. All right, in this case, we say, well, what is the action? What actually happened? Well, we know that something succeeded. This is our main verb or action of the sentence. And we need to work backwards, say, well, who or what succeeded? All right, to get her elected is not what succeeded. What succeeded is the efforts. Okay, the efforts were successful. You know, and the efforts purpose was to get her elected. All right, so in this sentence, that's how we would identify those two. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to move on to rule number 2 here. All right, if you take a look at your sheet again, we look at rule number 2. Okay, for rule number 2, a subject will become before a phrase beginning with of. All right, so this is a phrase where it starts with of. Our subject should be coming right before it. For example, a bouquet of yellow flowers will lend color and fragrance to the room. In this case, we start out by finding the verb first. Remember, we're going to look for the verb. What is the action? What is something doing in this sentence? Something is lending. All right, we have a helping verb here. So, will lend, all right, is our verb. All right, when we say what will lend, okay, or who or what will lend. What often gets students into trouble is they just look right in front of us and say, oh, well, flowers will lend. Well, in this case, we have the phrase, of yellow flowers. All right, so in this case, all right, that's a phrase. Our subject is actually going to be right in front of it. All right, so if we look here, a bouquet is what is lending color and fragrance to the room. Or what's the function or the purpose of this prepositional phrase? It's to tell us what type of bouquet. Okay, it's a bouquet of yellow flowers. All right, now be careful. All right, be careful. Don't just look for the word of and assume that a subject in your sentence is right above it, because we're looking at function. All right. For example, I just ordered a set of pens. In this case, we look at our action first. Or always look for the action. Ordered. Okay, who ordered this? Okay, I did. So our subject is I in this case. All right, later on when we start talking about direct objects, we say who or what did you order? I ordered a set. All right, so set in this case is going to be the direct object, and that's going to come a little bit later on when we start diagramming sentences. All right, so remember, a subject will come before a phrase beginning with of, all right, but it has to be answering the question. All right, so when we look for our verb and ask who or what performed it, it has to be answering that question. So think back to the first one. A bouquet of yellow flowers will lend. All right, let's take a look. We're going to move on here. Let's look at rule number 4. Okay, we're looking at rule number 4 here. All right, finding subjects and verbs. Any request or command such as stop or walk quickly has the understood subject you. All right, because if we ask who is supposed to stop or who's supposed to walk quickly, you know, the answer is you. You're supposed to do it. For example, please bring me some coffee. All right, in this case, we're going to look. We do this just like we do every other sentence. Think back to rule number 3, that basic rule. All right, what is the action that's occurring? All right, someone is bringing me some coffee. And we say, well, who? Obviously, if I say, please bring me some coffee, I'm talking to you. All right, so the way we signify that is in front of the sentence. We write the word you. We underline it once. And then we put it in parentheses. All right, because it's just an understood you. All right, the same thing would qualify if someone looks at you and they yell duck. Okay, and a ball is flying at your head. While the ball's speeding at your head, you're not going to be like, who? Okay, you're going to get hit in the face. All right, so if we look here at this one, duck is our only word. It's a complete sentence. All right, it's our verb. And we say, well, who or what is supposed to duck? Well, you're supposed to duck. Okay, that's rule number 4. We're on to our last one, almost done. Okay, we're on to rule number 5, our last and final rule of finding subjects and verbs. Pretty simple. It's just a reminder. Okay, keep in mind that sentences often have more than one subject, verb, or combinations of both. For example, I like cake and he likes ice cream. This one has compound subjects and compound verbs. All right. So if we look at our verbs, let's go through and find those first. Okay, we have like and likes. All right, when we ask who or what, like and likes, we come up with I and he. All right, so we have two subjects, two verbs. All right, let's take a look at the next one. He and I like cake. In this case, we have one verb, here, one action, someone likes. When we ask who likes, we have two subjects, both he and I. All right, that takes us to our final example, all right, which is she lifts weights and jogs daily. In this case, we're going to look at our actions, or what's happening in the sentence. Someone lifts and someone jogs. In this case, she is the answer to both of those. All right, so she is our subject, and we have compound verbs. All right, so remember those 5 rules. Before you move on to subject-verb agreement, we go on our next step of writing. Remember, in order to see if they agree, we first have to figure out, where are the verbs? All right, where are the subjects? Always ask the verb first. Ask who or what performed the subject. If you need any more help on this, okay, go to the link provided in the description. All right, check out Big Blue Grammar Book, Punctuation. It's a great book. All right, if you have anything to work from, you can go through the description, find the links, look at more worksheets, find other examples. But that is it for now.